Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Beyond Hegemony, formerly Hegemony Revealed. And I'm joined here with my lovely hosts, Gary and Sahana. Gary's in the UK, Shahana's in India. And and I'm here currently in Mauritius, but I'm from the US. And we're here, we're going to talk about some beyond hegemony and our topic today is climate change, environmental issues around the world, and how we can kind of come together as a collective people to change our impact on this beautiful planet that's living and thriving and breathing, and we are just a small part of her existence. So, but how are you guys? How are you
Blessed to
doing?
be here. Not too bad.
Not too bad. There's a lot of shit going on. Let's be honest. No,
So,
I'm smiling on the outside, and on the inside, I'm like, sometimes, yeah. But I'm very happy. But I wanted to start our things out with this story, because I think it really aligns with our topic today. Um, I usually do a daily walk, and I do it at the beach. And I hadn't been doing it because the weather has been really bad. So I went out and I did my daily walk, and I was sitting there and I sat under a bunch of red dragonflies. And I love dragonflies. The symbolism is rebirth, transformation, um, self connection, and realization. So they're one of my favorite spirit animals. And they have 360 view. They can fly, they can bob and weave like no other creature on the planet, right? And so I'm sitting there and I see these red ones around my house all the time, and I was surrounded by them. And then I said to my dog, she's somewhere, I really miss those really beautiful turquoisey green, blue green ones. And they're much bigger, and I hadn't seen them in a long time. Well, I was in session with a client out by the pool, and here comes one. I screamed. I screamed so loud. And my client was like, "Are you okay?" I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Hold on, hold on." And I called to my son and I said, come look. I'm just want to make sure I'm not crazy, because I literally asked to see one of these today and we've never seen them. And he's like, "No, it's a blue green one. We never see these here." And I said, "Yes." And I got back on my client and I said, "This is just a really powerful example about where you are in your energy field and calling out to the universe for what you want. And it in nature listens, right? She really does. But most of the time, Shahana, you said something off camera that I really loved. What did you say? Tell the audience what you said.
yeah, I was just saying that we are a part of nature, and nature is always, always listening to us. Always. She's communicating with us in a zillion ways. It's we who refuse to see, hear, listen. And
Mm.
honestly, sometimes we become so dumb, literally and metaphorically in every sense of the word, that even when we hear her, we prefer to not hear. And all her signs and signals, you know, we, with all the so called advanced data and technology and big data and all of that, and AI and what not other technocratic shit that we are dreaming up, we still refuse to heed the smallest and the largest signs coming our way. And then we call it science.
Absolutely. And Gary, this is kind of like in your field a bit. So,
It's so yeah, and good to see you two again. May I just say I so appreciate you both, and anybody that's watching us live or listening back. It's it's in my. I literally recorded something else this morning, Trina and Shahana, sort of in this vein of I still struggle thinking about beyond hegemony, right? I
Mhm.
still struggle with the binary thinking myself on occasion, right? I'm sitting here with you, both of you going, like, I know the world's like a bit wild. I know that the climate change is real. I know can see the impacts on food. But is that mine to talk about when I know I want to be talking about this at the same time? Like I want to care about like bringing people together and community building and driving
Mhm.
change. And like so all of the time you're sitting in this balance of like actually I'm all of that and nature doesn't dissect us into pieces. Nature
No.
embraces all of us, right? We are part of it. And like it just makes me reflect upon Trina, that enforced colonization of the mind and experience to separate us
Mhm.
into a billion pieces. And I,
That's right.
when I think about beyond hegemony and what's happening in my workplace and what's happening in the world, it's just mass disintegration and disembodiment. And what could it look like? What's the possibility of just reconnecting to ourselves in our local
Yeah.
context and then to one another? Like how much change would happen from there with the climate, with the
Yeah.
environment? So these are the
Oh
sorts of things
wow.
I'm pondering at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. We was definitely would. We talk about it and we say it probably on every episode that we've had thus far from the very beginning. It is the reconnection to ourselves that's going to create the reverberation out to the rest of the world. We're deeply disconnected from ourselves, mind, body, and spirit. So that's why we eat food that we don't actually taste. We say things that we don't think about, that think before you speak type thing. We do a lot of damage to ourselves that we end up projecting out to everybody that we meet. So imagine if we pushed hegemony's noise out and we said, okay, we hear that, but I need to focus on this right now, so I can so I can spread my tendrils out to all those people who are suffering, who are hurting, and we can collectively create the change.
Yeah. And in this context, Trina, what you're saying is so important. And what Gary was saying, just linking the two,
Mm-hmm.
Gary was talking about us, we constantly trip over our own binary thinking. And binary thinking is a very hegemony induced thing, right? Evil and good, and man versus woman, evil versus good, and day versus night, tradition versus modern, and civilized versus savages, and everything. It's like this world is split in two. This is the good part, this is the bad part. And hey, you know what? We are the good ones, you all are the bad ones. So
Yes.
so that binary thinking, and what you're saying, Trina, you started with a story. And why I keep talking about narratives and stories is because stories carry us beyond binary thinking.
Mm.
No amount of algorithm and data and big tech and AI and all the techno utopian shit can take us beyond binary thinking, because they're built on binaries. LLMs are built on
Mm.
actually, embedding those binaries even deeper,
Mm-hmm.
embedding those, what do you call it, those constructs even deeper, because what LLM is using are basically available data on the internet. They're happily using without any copyright, without any. It's plagiarization to the power of infinity. And then that's repackaged as algorithm and sold to us as art and whatnot. Okay. But come to stories, and LLMs cannot, I mean, it can construct these quirky rhymes and verses and stories which sound very weird, but they are not stories. Go back to folk tales of any place, folk tales, tales that come from the land, from the
Mm.
people, from the souls of the land, and you know how vastly different those are from AI LLM induced digital shit.
Absolutely.
And those
Absolutely.
stories had the seeds of our, what I keep calling, our pluriversal regeneration. They have the seeds. I mean, I'm just going to quickly wind up by telling a little story myself. So in
Mm.
2014, I had traveled to the Sundarbans, which is one of the largest mangrove ecosystem in the world, and of course famous for the Bengal tigers. And it is at the estuary, the Bay of Bengal, where India meets Bangladesh and Burma, and it is that that system. So
Mm.
once you're in the boat and you're inside, you're literally floating on this boat, surrounded by ancient mangroves. You're
Mm.
going down tunnels, in dark tunnels. You're just in the boat and literally with these mangroves all around you. It's like, a living version of Jurassic Park. And
Wow.
and I lived on that boat for almost a week with the fishermen and traveled down those estuaries. I mean, I don't know how they know. And once you come near the border, you have to fly the India flag because you could very well cross over into Bangladesh, and the fishermen keep doing it and they know each other. But so I was talking, and this is 10 years back, and I was talking to this quote unquote illiterate, the boat people, right, the boatmen who navigate the boats. They know that estuary, and it is so intricate, with the rising tides, falling tides. Everything looks the same and different at the same time. You're literally on this floating forest, and they know it like the back of their hand. And this old man, he was telling me stories, and he was telling me 10 years back that Didi is like a respectful term. It means elder sister. So he was telling me, Didi, you know what? The water here is becoming saltier and saltier, and the tigers become much more ferocious. Those are the only tigers that can swim, and they become much more ferocious when the water becomes salty. And I was like, why is it becoming saltier? 10 years back, I didn't know anything about, what is happening, global warming. And he is telling me, you know what? The ice is melting, and that is raising the sea levels, and the sea water is flowing back into the rivers here, carrying the salt. And so the water here is becoming saltier. And when this water flows back into our fields are becoming losing fertility because it is salt water flowing back into our fields. Which is why our young folks are all trying to leave the place, and somehow they are trying to get into other parts of the world where they can make a living, which is then climate refugees. And saltwater salination of freshwater reserves, and salination of fertile fields. And this man is explaining it to me by navigating, taking me through those estuaries and showing me. And yes, he showed me the difference between freshwater and salt induced water. And over the 10 years, it has become so much worse, which is where all the climate refugees you see go from, the Bengalis, because they have nothing there. They can't do anything. The fields are all gone. And then you have, of course, US and Europe trying to block immigration. But hey, y'all went there first, destroyed the place, and now y'all don't want the people from there.
So valid.
Mhm.
That thank you, Shahana. And that we hear that story so much, and also we hear it being done on purpose so much,
Yeah, it
and
is.
that it is a sort of control mechanism for hegemony to, rid the country, rid the world of the, undesirables. And they've been doing it for thousands of years. They did it with the Native Americans. They've done it, unfortunately, all over the world. And that is a history that the Europeans need to reckon with, so that it can be rectified, so there can be some type of rec- you know reconciliation of it, of what has been done. But the arrogance, they don't feel like they have to do anything. It's like, oh well. And where does that psychopathy come from?
If I may add to that, Shahana, beautiful story, and thanks for that ad, Trina. So as most people may know, I work within the corporate space still, right? So I see the, the let's say the pain and the harm and the survival, and I think part of the issue, Trina and Shahana, Whether you're on $20 a day or 2 million bucks a day, the same capitalist system has you trapped.
Mm.
And I think this is part of what so many people, we're not having the conversation in the West enough in business to go, hey, this isn't about pity. This isn't about trying to do the right thing. This is about genuine reparations and understanding that actually there's been several hundred years of harm caused to the global majority, and we can stop this now. We can stop it now. So I talk often around, and it's linked to the climate conversation we're having. I keep saying to people within my context when they'll listen, it's not a money issue. We governments print money at will. It's a will issue.
Yeah.
And I think the more we can have that conversation in a healthy, grown-up adult way in the West,
Yeah.
I think we can make really big shifts really
It's
quickly. So I'm thinking beyond hegemony here. It's
yeah.
like we need those adult conversations and the
Mhm.
will to
Yeah.
have those.
Yeah.
Well,
And
we
also, yeah, no, Trina, carry on. No,
no,
carry on.
no,
It's
no,
fine.
no. I was gonna just say we just have, you know, we have an infantile psychopathy going around for so long that's been at the root of hegemony about this is mine. Is people running around having mantrums that I call,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I
Shouldn't laugh,
just
but yeah.
Yeah. And add another word that I keep using. I mean,
Mhm.
recently I've started using mandem. I mean, they cause mayhem, but I call it mandem. It's mostly by men, right? It's not mayhem. It's mandem. Their cross, their mandate comes with the mandate to cause mandem all over the world. I swear.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
uh, so you know what you're saying, Trina, is so important because just just one example. When colonization happened or neo-colonization or whatever,
Hmm.
one of the narratives linked to it is we are civilizing the savages. It's a very in various forms. Okay, so
Mm-mm.
we are helping them to get rid of their superstitions and their their rituals, and we are helping to modernize them, bring technology and all of that. The modernization civilization aspect is the big thing, and add development and growth to it.
Hmm.
Now, and I've been trying to have this conversation and I've thrown this at so many people. Take economy, take the hegemonic extractive predatory economic system. Okay, now any sane person after 1970s limits to growth, Donna Meadows, any sane person from then on to Rachel Carson, and that the with the data and the knowledge and the science knows uh, in the past 50 years that what economy is doing is insane. Okay, the way economy is going, it is insane, a deliberate destruction of the planet for absolutely no known reason. Now tell me how this is not cult like, superstitious, absolutely low grade, superstitious cult like mania. Tell me how
Oh
this is
wow.
rational. Tell me how this is scientific. Tell me how this is even remotely civilized behavior from the
No.
so called civilizing growth driven missions of the so-called civilized parts of the world. I mean,
Right.
what is the rationale? They talk about being rationalistic, being scientific. Where does that science even come in? Only a only one, the economists and the extractivists and the capitalists doing their mental acrobatics can even remotely think of this in any rational terms. This is just absolute cult like superstition
Mm.
by
I
a
don't even.
it's
It's
a
it's
cult
kind
by
of
a handful of oligarchs.
exactly. It's
What
I
is
don't care what you
civilizing? It is savage, and it is the most savage behavior I've ever known.
because the Roman Empire was not civilized. This is what we have in just extension after extension of these quote unquote
So,
civilizations, these empires, and they were never civilized. They were cults of war, cults of savagery, cults of rape. It was just about domination. It's happening right now. You see the way that the representatives of Israel talk about Palestinian Gazans,
Right.
I was
Yeah.
like, do you really believe that?
And
Really? Because
I'm
everybody else out here is like, it's like
and
your jaw just drops every time
exactly.
they open the mouth because it's so inhumane
No, and
and
you
it's
can hear the indoctrination in their voice.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yes.
yes,
the only question that keeps coming up for me is, if you are so intelligent, if you're so smart, how can you be so brainwashed that you don't have a brain anymore? It's washed away.
yeah, they don't.
How is that possible? I mean, how can you not see that at one point it was the USA which turned away boatloads of Jews,
Hmm.
and it was
Hmm.
the Middle East which took them in?
Hmm. That's
So
right.
you've basically got Semites pitted against Semites. They are the Semites. I mean, the Middle East are the Semites.
That's
So
right.
you're pitting Semites against Semites and then calling each other anti Semites, and the actual anti Semites are laughing all the way to their bank account. How does it even make sense?
Well, I just wrote a paper about this, an article about this, and I've been really deep diving in all of
Yeah,
this kind of information because I need to understand when people act that crazy. I hate to use the word crazy, but unstable. I need to understand what's the real agenda, what's the real goal,
yeah.
because
It's the
it
Ben Gurion Canal and the gas and the energy
yes,
that is there underneath the
yes.
dirt of the Middle East. Why is Middle East kept in a constant state of churn by the USA? Either it's Iraq, or it's Afghanistan, or it's Iran, or it's Syria, or it's Lebanon, or it's and Israel is just their watchdog out there, sniffing around and creating chaos because that's what they are being told to do.
I mean, this started
Because
in 19,
I mean, ultimately,
1902. Yeah.
it's 1902. It's even before that because they want
Mm.
that oil and gas.
Yeah.
See, according to the hegemonic structure, either you pay, either you pay obeisance and become our obedient vassals, or you are my
Mm.
enemy. Either you're
Hmm.
with us. With us
Yes.
means not as an equal partner. You have to be like my, the lowest of the lowest slave, or
Hmm.
you are my enemy. Because
Hmm.
China don't agree, China is the enemy. Russia doesn't
Mm.
agree, Russia is the enemy. I mean, they can just concoct enemy out of thin air. Tomorrow they can create a new country in the Antarctic and call them the enemy if they can't go and frack for oil over there. So the
But
point,
it's so us the people, what we don't understand and what we have to get to understanding is that we are way more powerful. I've been saying we are the 99%. And this is why they're freaking out. This is why they're trying to ban TikTok because we are the 99 cent and we're tired of
yeah,
it.
yeah,
We
and
know
everyone,
Mhm.
yeah,
we
Yeah.
yeah,
see the scam, we see the game, and we've got to be fighting out of unity, solidarity,
yeah,
and no more fear. You know what I mean? It's having that, cultivating that polymathic mind, understanding the roots of why. I mean, a lot of this is just, you know, dingalings flinging around from century to century saying, no, I'm more powerful. No, I'm more powerful. And the people suffer every single time. It's, and then the environment suffers. That's the thing. It's just like, if anything, we need to be unified in order to save the planet in which we live on, we thrive on, we need to survive on. We need to unify, if anything, just to save ourselves.
This
yeah,
is, this, I'm laughing, but not laughing because this is a thing. I can't remember who shared it on LinkedIn, but it was a beautiful moment where they shared, don't worry about the planet. I think we just touched on this in one of our previous conversations. Like, she will be fine.
yeah,
Like, what are we going to do, as you said, Trina, to save ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are we going to say, be differently going
Mm-hmm.
forward? And I'm just, so I'm curious around again, looking beyond, right, hegemony. Like, what are the space? What do these spaces look like? What do they feel like? Who's involved? Do you know what I mean? Because it really is a fully collective effort.
Mm-hmm.
but it's open to everybody, right? Like there's no
Yeah.
exclusivity in
Mm-hmm.
this imagining that you're both sharing, right? That I share
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
Right. 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 We get rid of the monopolies. There should be no Unilever. There should be no BlackRock. There should be no billionaires. That has to all go away. There should be
Agreed.
no particular political group leading anything. If we need politics at all, they should be multi-layered and not one or two in America. Or, there should be people with intelligent, emotional intelligence leading the way, not these capitalists. They have to go because they have been the downfall of humanity from their conception.
Yeah. Yeah. And hegemony, which is kind of rooted in colonialism of every sort,
Mhm,
of the
mhm.
planet, of other continents, of people of other colors, people with
Yeah.
slightly flatter noses, slightly different eye
Mhm.
shape of the eye. I mean, anything is chosen to colonize and extract and expropriate, right?
Right.
So if you look at the planet, and the planet is a whole entity. It is a
Mhm,
living, thriving, literally throbbing with life. It's a planetary home that we call our home. We are part of this. And then you literally implant a foreign body like
mhm,
hegemony, like colonization onto this planet. And now
mhm,
that starts getting out of hand.
mhm,
Then the body politic is going to eject it.
Hmm.
Now the planet is ejecting it, like we eject a malfunctioning organ, or we eject a wrong organ transplant. So here you have the planet trying to eject, literally rejecting the colonization and all its different forms.
mhm,
So it's it's like we need to go. Yes, okay, just by existing 8 billion of us, we are colonizing the planet in some way. We will have an impact. We will, but that impact can be respectful. That we
mhm.
can that impact doesn't have to. I mean, look at the indigenous tribes living in the forest. For
That's
thousands
right.
of years you've had tribes living inside Amazon. I'm not saying we all start going and living in the Amazon will turn into a desert overnight. What I'm saying is we can learn from that wisdom and how to live lightly on this planet.
Right.
We can learn
Minimalize.
and how to live with respect for the sacredness and sanctity of life. We don't
That's
have to go chop 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 for every old growth forest, for every piece of furniture that we throw away the next year because it's out of fashion or whatever.
that part.
Okay,
That
you know.
part.
So
Minimalize.
yeah,
We,
and
we we need a lot less
yeah,
than we have. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And when we look at it, we are not only looking at beyond hegemony, we are looking at a world, cosmovisions that don't come from that mindset of colonizing, but rather from what you said, Trina, from solidarity and from collaborating not only with humans but collaborating with all life forms.
Mm, mm.
I mean, in the Sundarbans again, when they go in they to cut wood or to get honey, they actually pray and ask permission of the forest before they go in.
Exactly. They give gratitude. We always go back to an energy. We
Yeah,
always go back
yeah,
to something that is connected to ourselves. We can't destroy what we love. It's really
exactly.
hard to do. It's really
Yeah,
hard to do.
yeah,
So it's like I know people do it on a subconscious level, but they're not connected to self love. They're not connected to themselves. So they're just acting out and projecting their pain onto people. That's what's happening right now. I really think that most of the people who colonize this world are really pain ridden, um, angry, fear based beings that don't even know how to just step back and sit with themselves because they can't look themselves in the mirror. They can't. I don't care what they're doing, drugs, they're doing some depraved stuff, they're doing something to escape themselves constantly. And money is the biggest drug, you know? Let's just get as much as we can. And it really has no value. I think the people who created our current currency system are just laughing their ass off. Look,
Yeah,
they think
yeah,
it's about dollars and cents.
yeah.
It's
I
They
mean,
do.
replace these pieces of papers with the cowrie shells that Egyptians used. How is it different? I
There's
mean,
none.
they just gathered shells, and if they took something from you, they give you one shell or two shells, depending on what was the decided price. Just replace this with shells. Replace it with anything that can is exchangeable.
do you know what blows my mind the most? And I have to keep reminding myself of this, is how recent all of this is. Like
Yeah,
the stock markets, you
yeah.
know, Western trade and capitalism. Like this is like just literally 100 years, if not less. And I think it's interesting with the 1970s reference you made earlier,
Mm,
Trina, because guess what? That was a similar time that
mm,
my industry, big oil, went into propaganda mode. It
Yeah.
was all around the 1970s. So,
That's
you know, this stuff's so recent. And I think I guess I'm trying to invite myself and all of us to breathe into that. It's actually a speck of time, which means we can
yeah,
really
it's
shift
just.
this really quickly.
I mean, 4 billion
so
years of the planet, 4 billion years of existence, vis-a-vis like 50 years, 100 years. What?
mhm. Yeah, and look how short of a time it's taken to create to just eradicate species all over the planet. That's the crazy part. I watched the video and I'm getting all this information just land in my lap lately. I don't even have to search for it sometimes. It just comes to me. But I got something in my feed about India and the shellac. I did not know shellac was a natural occurring substance from an insect that infests the trees, and it's a multi-million dollar industry. And shellac has been around for thousands of years, used for leather, used for bracelets, used for covering fruit to create, make the longevity of the, fruit last, make the fruit last. But it's completely natural. But because the climate has been affected and is changing in just destructive ways, there's the production is down because the species are dying. Something that would is so simple and so useful and helps us preserve things, but we can't get it together as a species to protect the environment enough. And so that's going to go away. And the replacement is some crap that is toxic, poisonous, and what's his name? Bill Gates created. You know, Monsanto created. What is we go from something that nature is providing us to something that is going to eventually make us sick, give us cancer, um, inflammatory diseases. We have to step up. We have to step up and just say no more.
And that's how you also have not only ecocide, which is
Mhm.
which is happening, ecosystems are just being killed off, wiped out, but you have eco-apartheid because the a certain part of the world and certain governments are sucking out so much from the planet, and certain places which have that. So when you
Mhm.
say, oh, we are doing clean energy, we are doing electric vehicles, okay, but you know what, the cobalt is coming from Congo, and you know what is happening, children are
Mm.
being made to dig in the Congo mines. Oh, no, no, but that's not our supply chain. You don't know
Yes,
because
it
the
is.
supply chain is so messed up, the informal feeding into the formal. And in the
Mhm.
process of creating EVs, you have completely wiped out Congo. And one country that should have been the richest in the world and other countries should have been literally like begging at her feet, is the poorest, the most displaced, the most dispossessed, and the most desperate. So they are the cheapest form of labor with the richest resources under their dirt.
That's right. And that's because our history has been decimated as as Africans. The I'm
Yeah,
reading right now The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Wallace. If you have not read this book, please put this on your reading list. He wrote this, he started doing research for this in the 50s to the 70s, okay? And this book is so fundamental for you to understand how Eurocentric historians destroyed and replaced the truth of history of Africa and our trade, and how Africa got infiltrated in such a manipulative and diabolical way. It is one of the most, it's a book written, what is 1960s, 1950s, how many years ago? And it's so absolutely important to what's happening in the world today. And I say this to all my clients and the people who will listen. Until that first energetic wound is healed, we will always, the world will burn. You have to go back to the root and heal it. Because until Congo and Africa and all the regions that are being exploited are restored, we're going to have chaos, because Israel is a part of it. The United States is a part of it. Europe is a part of it. And they need to all leave Africa so she can heal herself her way. That it's the cradle of the world.
Yeah, if I may, I'd love to add, and what's going to help that is actually not relying on materiality assessments and the next
Mhm.
badge for being mass balance or having the next supply chain certification to show you're more ethical than the next one. And I say
Mhm.
that with love to my peers in pharmaceutical, in energy, in oil, in all of these areas. Like the next badge, the carbon offsetting scheme you might be signing up to, this is all charades that do not allow Africa and the rest of the world to heal in the way that Trina's beautifully pointing to, right? And I don't see this as a zero sum game though, and I think this is part of the colonized mind, right?
Mm.
People in industry listening to us today will be like, "What planet are you on? That cannot happen." And I see it
Yes.
as a failure of imagination, like, and I just wonder about that. Like, what would it look like if 8 billion people coming from a place of freedom of imagination? What's possible then?
Right. Well, it's fear. It's a delusion of fear. The funny part is that there's way more of us than them, and if we wanted them, everyone who was on the pale scale, dead, that would have already happened. That would have already happened. That's not the nature of who we are as a people. That we know the repercussions of that type of pain, what it causes, what it does. We to be deeply centered in our connection with ourselves, with our ancestors. We can't operate in that way. Um, but I know that we can be a lot smarter now. Now that it's almost like when people show you who they are, believe them. It's time for that. You know, that's what it's time for. So we see who they are, and now we relinquish them. That's how I see it. And they have to deal with the consequences of that, and maybe change. Ooh, change is possible.
and and I think one more point, what you're saying, Trina, is so important, that relinquishing the current, we have to physically, literally let go.
Hmm.
And I was just talking about this yesterday with someone who's doing fantastic work. Maybe you all know about her work a bit. Sabrina Meherali. She's doing great work around
Mm,
decolonizing design. And I was talking to her, and
Mhm.
one of the things she said really, really stayed with me.
mm,
And each one of us, and this is an invitation to all of us, to anyone listening now, later, in the future, each one of us have to literally feel in our bodies embodiment of
mhm,
what it means and what it looks like, feels like to us, to me as an individual, to step out of hegemony. And
mm,
what would that world look like for me? So, reinvigorating our own imagination of
mm.
a beyond hegemony world. What would that look like? How would I behave? How would I be? How would I
Mm.
feel? How would I talk? What choices would I make? The thing is, we can't think our way out of it.
No,
We can't think our way out of this work. This is work that needs to happen from within to have an impact without.
that's right.
And
Feel.
it won't be we can't think it, we have to do it, we have to be it. And
Mm,
which means embodiment, imagination, going to our root source, and coming in solidarity. So when I hear words like phrases, rather, like, coming from whichever so-called governments of the world today, whether it's India or the USA or any other part of the world, when they
mhm,
say things like America first or making India great or whatever, that really makes me feel extremely scared.
mm,
Mhm.
We
mm,
are no longer in a world of individual countries and continents. Unless leadership of the emergent future cannot envision themselves as global leaders, no matter how much chest thumping they do that we are the global
mhm.
world powers and being power brokers is not leadership. We do not have world leaders.
We
We
do.
have power brokers and oligarchs.
We need
So the
world collaborators, not leaders.
Yes, we need those stewards who think beyond countries and nations and man-made borders, who will
Mm,
not say things like making America great again, but who can say things like making our planet livable for all, human and post-human and beyond human.
Could I
Unless they
make?
can say that,
Uh,
they can't be leaders.
yeah.
didn't mean to cut you then, Shahana. My apologies. I just want to make one
No, no,
thing
no, no.
really,
I
really.
invite your voice, Gary. I
Yeah.
really want to hear it.
It's really important for me to say, and this is not performative. I mean this from the depths of my heart. Both Trina and Shahana know this. What we need is as few leaders that look and sound like me on the world stage. And I say that with love because I can assure you, I've done a lot of work and I've got a lot more to do, people. But my global network is 95% woman or woman identifying.
There you
Those that are
go.
doing the work, those that are actually leading, those that are in this conversation, those that are vulnerable, those that have got an imagination, those that are creative, those that want to collaborate across borders. 95% of my global network is not looking or sounding like me. That's no detriment. We've all got a role. It's important we've all got a role, but we have
Mhm,
to get into ally support mode and out of the way. And I'm saying it here and now to make it very, and I wanted to give that context because I think it's really important because my network 10 years ago all looked and sounded like me. And I'm a better person for having people like you two in my world. And I really mean that from the depths of my soul because it's so, so important. And you both know I'm saying that from a genuine place and not a performative place, right?
mhm. I do.
And
I do.
can I add to that, Gary? I mean, when you say that, I so respect what you're saying. Having said that, I also want to categorically state we need people who look like you and talk like you,
Yes.
because we need people who look like you to hear and sense that they can also have role models and be different.
Oh,
Absolutely.
you said it,
Then we
Shahana.
need people like you to become role models for what the people of the see the point is it's not us versus them. It can't be. It never
Mhm.
has been. It is global
Absolutely.
governance which has been hijacked by a handful of oligarchs, which is not serving anyone. Today,
That's right.
California, on one hand, has the Silicon Valley and the Elon Musks of the world, and has thousands of homeless on the streets.
Exactly.
Where are they
Exactly.
coming from? They are Californians. They are white people. So who is being served? And then the leaders of the so-called the oligarchs, I won't call them leaders, the oligarchs will then deflect by say, oh look there, they are the enemies, Chinese. Oh look, Iran is an enemy, and then deflect the poor people's attention so that they can go and grab some more of the poor people's money. Then you have a BlackRock or a Raytheon kind of sucking the soul out of America.
Yeah. This is the thing. We once we start getting educated and understanding how the world actually has worked for millennia rather than just for this little blip in time, we'll understand the nature of all creatures, big and small, and the one called the colonialists. And so I agree with Shahana 100%. Gary, we need your voice. We need your face. We need your leadership. We need you to help educate the next generation of people that look like you. It's a healing process. Through
Mm.
your healing process, you get to help facilitate the
Exactly.
healing of other people. If you disappeared, it wouldn't work because there would be the resentment, there would be the revenge, there would be the next cycle of psychopaths
No,
that just
yeah,
could not
and there
accept
wouldn't be a
being
role model
led.
for what, and they wouldn't have role models for what they can become. They would be stuck in
Exactly.
the Trump like world of, look, we have to
Exactly.
retain our whiteness and our Americanness and whatever
Ex-
ness they think they need to retain.
yeah.
They
And it
have a
all the
light at the
toxic
end of the tunnel.
exactly. And all the toxicity would remain. So we need people to step up that look like you, to use your voice. And when you do, you can make that other person say, "Oh, it's okay for me to speak. I was afraid to say something because somebody that looks like me is not making me feel secure." We've got to build up some self-esteem, the real self-esteem, the
Mm.
real self-love, and then there'll be the shift and the change. But
I mean,
anyways, go ahead,
yeah.
and then
No, I
we've
was
got
just going to say that it's not only people like you who look like you who are propping up hegemonies. There are
no.
plenty of people who look like me
Yeah,
and Trina who are propping up hegemony, and their hegemony is foot
That's right.
it's a
soldiers
good
all over
point.
the
It's a
world.
good point.
So it's not the look on the outside, it's the work with inside, right? I mean, I
Exactly.
have bunches of people. So sometimes, it is, I'm just, without naming names, I'll tell a story that what happened on LinkedIn. I actually got pushback about, so I keep calling out, right? Things like Eurocentric hegemony or a handful of white men who are having made up the story of hegemony and the rest of the world following it for 500 years. So I got a pushback saying, I agree with what you're writing, but can you please stop taking a dig at white men? And I'm like, okay, okay, who's this? Because I wasn't, like, then I looked in, it's an Indian woman who's
There you go.
migrated to Australia
Fascinating.
and who's now
There you
benefiting
go.
from Australia
That's
and who's
right.
actually doesn't, because now she has this thing of, I'm benefiting from this culture, so
There you go. That.
I can't call out,
If I
so
call it out, then I lose my privileges that I've been working
So
so
I
hard to
don't
get.
I get the most support on LinkedIn from people who look like you and the least from people who look like me.
Same
As
here.
weird as that sounds.
Same
So
here. And
hegemony is not being propped up only by a certain color. It's being propped up by people who are benefiting from it in certain ways and by mindsets and by people who are willing to be foot soldiers. I mean, Rishi Sunak looks like us.
Yeah, okay.
He
oh
That's
my
is the worst person ever. And his
oh
father
my
in
goodness.
law here in India is propagating 80-hour work weeks so he can go from being a billionaire to a trillionaire. That he is such a BS of a man and his wife, I tell you, the biggest frauds that ever. And someone, a few of us on Twitter just said, can Rishi Sunak please take his in laws over there and keep them
Yeah,
maintained
but
wherever he lives? We don't
Oh
want
my
them in
goodness.
India. We
Well,
don't want them in India.
no matter what, when the oppressed become are so oppressed, they become the enemy. They turn into the
No, and they
oppressor,
were never
and that's
oppressed.
how
They're
it
the
is.
richest of the rich in India, right? So they
I know
need
what you
to.
mean, but generationally.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I'm not talking
yeah. They're
about right now. I'm talking
generationally rich.
originally.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
They
But
are the
anyways,
generationally rich people who want to stay on top of that privilege tower. And good
yeah.
for George Galloway. I love George Galloway. I don't know him. I don't, but I love what he
He's
says.
a loose cannon, but
I know.
he's a good
Oh,
I
guy.
he
like
can be the
Calloway.
We
loosest cannon I
I
can
love
we like
loose
but
loose
he
cannons.
cannon.
can take Rishi. I love loose cannon.
I
Yeah.
love loose cannons.
Welcome.
They bring
Love
they
the way
bring
he took down
they
Rishi
bring to
Sunak.
light.
What do you think
They
of him? I don't like him. I was like, way to go, George. So
Yeah.
see, George looks like you, Rishi Sunak looks like me, but who's
see
with us? So
see.
it's never
All
who
right.
looks like who.
All right, you guys. I've got to jump onto a call. I'm already running behind,
Fire,
and
fire.
I really appreciate both of you. Thank you to everybody who
Thank
stuck
you.
around and watched this live, wherever you are in the world. Please share it. Please comment on it. The
Yeah.
LinkedIn algorithms sucks. If you guys do not share, you do not care. If you sat here and watched this all the way to the end and listened to us rattle on about our dreams and hopes and wishes for the world, thank you. But you start creating them too,
Yeah.
because it's a collective
Brilliant.
error.
And join
Collective.
us. Join
Yeah.
us.
And join us. If you ever want to be a
Yes.
guest, please contact me, Gary or Shahana, and let us know, and we will definitely bring you up to the box. And I really do hope you two have a great day, and I will see you in 2 weeks.
Take care, everyone. Great to see you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye
Bye.
bye.